Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Max Rounds 30 podcast. It's season 2. That's right. We made it more than one season. That's what you love to see. We got a nice little new look for everything going on now. This will be evolving a little bit over the course of this upcoming season from all that. But as usual, I am joined by Coy from MTU Esports, Jeff from Dust2 US, and myself from the UWW Esports. And in 30 minutes, we'll be covering all of this past week's North American CSGO content. So
and there's a lot of it, so strap yourself in. It's going to be a rough one.
Let's get things rolling, but first let's get that timer rolling. And there we are, off to the races. Let's get it off with our roster changes. Hey, that rhymed.
All right, now I think I'm going to take over as master of ceremonies for this one because I did write half the articles, so I have a special level of insight that only a slave of the system would have. So we're gonna go basically chronologically from the start of the week to the end of the week, but we're gonna combine some stories. So like we're not gonna say high coach dropped their team and then like 5 minutes later talk about picking up players. So for example, we're gonna start off with Team 1, Skulls to the bench, adding XNS from Sandoz Esports. And now to avoid talking about things no one cares about, we're gonna do this system here where Jacob to my left and Coy to my right will give me a thumbs up or give me a thumbs down if they think it's an interesting story worth talking about. So let's start, like I said, with Skulls, minus Skulls plus XNS. How do you guys feel about that? I'm giving it a thumbs up. Thumbs up? Okay, yeah. So let's dive right into it. What do we think about it?
Coy, I'll let you start on this one.
Okay, so now I'm not the most educated on Team 1's most recent performances. But in the past, I was always a big fan, especially during their, what was that, season 35? That they did really well?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been doing consistently well, I would think, for the last, like, four
But their Pro League stint, their Pro League stint was something that I didn't really keep up to date on. And so it'll be interesting to see how adding a new player, how it's going to affect their Pro League form that we saw, and then in this upcoming MDL season, or Premier season.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing, so like you, I didn't really keep abreast of their European adventure just because time zones, and also when they bombed out of Pro League, I just kind of lost interest and there was more pressing topics and matches to watch. I will say, though, one thing that kind of concerns me is obviously Skulls stepped down. And for people who don't know, Skulls has sort of been lauded as like a potential upcomer. I mean, honestly, he's been an upcomer for like 3 years now because he famously played for Luminosity for a fortnight before they dropped their team and left CSGO. But he is known as like a good fragger, and this XNS guy who's coming to the team is like a complete unknown. He plays for this small Brazilian club called Santos, and they haven't really been up to a whole lot. So I'm kind of concerned that he's going to be dead weight or just definitely not as good as Skulls. And one potential wrinkle to that is the fact that they probably couldn't get anyone better because of the ridiculous buyouts in Brazil. I mean, but they still have Maluki, they still have Bulbs, they still have PRT and Pesadelo. So like that's a strong 4-man. But like the thing that concerns me is XNS. Although, I mean, they're probably still fine for Premier. I just don't know if this is obviously, I think, like a negative pickup overall.
I don't think. Frankly, when you would watch Team 1 in their Pro League stint, and then some of the other tournaments that they were playing in, it didn't always feel like it was just an outright we don't have enough fragging power issue. It always felt like there was just like little team misplays or just a general across the board lack of experience. So having Skulls step down, I have a feeling we're going to see a fairly similar form in the grand scheme of things, because they're still going to have to build as a team together regardless in order to be more competitive. So
that's true. Yeah.
And I mean, like, what I was just going to touch on is like, of course, with them being back in NA, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with how they're coming out of Europe after basically falling on their face for a couple of months here. Where they've only put together like, I don't know, let's see here, like 1, 2, I think like 2 or 3 best of 3 victories out of like maybe close to 20 played something in that, like they've played a lot of games and they've not really come out with a lot of victories with those. So maybe this is a needed change, of course. We'll see. It's not necessarily something
Well,
where
the condition of Scholes stepping down, I don't necessarily think it's
Yeah.
something they wanted to happen, because they did mention that he's returning to Brazil, and it's like and they said like the team psychologist signed off on it. So it almost sounds like he's homesick, which you can't really blame him for, because he's a player that had never left Brazil except for like a month with Luminosity, and he's been in Europe for 4 months during COVID. So I assume that's probably what's going on here. I mean, I don't, we don't know anything about XNS. He could turn out to be a fine enough role player, or just a good player in general. But I mean, I don't think that there's really a lot to say. We can't really know if this is going to be a good move or a bad move, but I still think they're going to be a top team in NA Premier.
Absolutely, I'd agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be nice to see them take a return to form. I think, especially
I've missed them a
what they've
lot.
had. Yeah,
I mean, they've been in NA for what, like going on 3 years now. So I've sort of adopted them into the pantheon of NA teams to the same extent you would say with like Bravado when they were in NA. I kind of just consider them to be a home team now. So let's move on to the next move. GGPR add J Dubs, Beaky, and Quick as a coach, while Ninja stepping down to an analyst. Thoughts? Interested? Do we like do we want to talk about this? Like, no.
I just want to say a quick thing. I think it's a pretty like linear-ish move. I think that they're gonna be about in the same place that they were last season. Although if they're all able to put in a consistent amount of time, I could see them taking maps off of your mid to upper Premier teams somewhat frequently. But I definitely wouldn't hold a ton of hope for them winning the season or anything.
I'm kind of a separate mind about this. This feels like a very generic, like, grab two low-level premier / high-level advanced players, and I'm not really that hopeful for this lineup, just because it's like we said last week they'd have to do something interesting in terms of their roster to inspire, like, think they were going to make playoffs again, because I do ultimately think them making playoffs is kind of a fluke, let's say. So I don't know. I don't really think like Beaky and J Dubs really move the needle forward. If anything, I'd say they move the needle a bit back. I don't know.
I think it's about where it was.
I don't know what. Well, they don't have Arcuz anymore, and that is Arcuz kind of felt like the X factor in that roster to me personally, and
yeah, that's true.
Like, he felt like the guy who is always able to like X factor. He was just the person who you never know what kind of performance, whether it be like from a ceiling perspective, what you're going to get out of Arcuz. So I personally, I'm kind of in the same boat with you, Jeff. I'm not super sure if I think this is a upwards move.
I also think the loss, downwards. And I think the last thing is, like, I think the loss of Exotic too. He definitely, he was at the other IGL, and I feel like he's probably contributing more than we think in terms of like mid rounding and just generally like being a good counterbalance to Lowrider, as they've been long time collaborators. So losing him too is bad. So I don't know. I think this moves the team back. Maybe not in terms of player skill, but definitely in terms of like being a cohesive unit that has like a strong star factor in Arcuz. Next move, we have OCG Esports Club dropping their French Canadian team. They're now playing as QC Clan, and they've added Incred and SML in place of the still banned Beck and Joel's.
This is a shame to see OCG go, in my opinion. Before we touch on the players, I just want to say, with everybody being like, this is, everybody back when they had Vec and they dropped the players due to the E6 stuff. They kind of, everybody's like, you've always been there for us for NA Counter-Strike, and now they're not.
I mean, I kind of have a feeling they'll come back, because looking at this roster, it's not exactly the most ambitious. Mind you, Incred's coming back from being retired to Valorant. SML is sort of an advanced level French Canadian player who's just sort of friends with these guys because of the French Canadian scene being so interconnected. Obviously, this team would have made playoffs last season, but I definitely think these two players are far and away worse than Zach and Joel's, probably not
Absolutely.
match fixers, but so that's a plus. But skill wise, that's a definitely downfall for them. I don't know. I think this is a clear downgrade, and I don't think there's really too much to get like excited about with this move. Let's see. Next move. Some positive news. So Rise, who we all I think note as a standout team in season 36. They did play very well. They narrowly missed out on playoffs. They lost their org because of quote organizational issues, which sounds like the org ran out of money or ran out of interest. And they got picked up by Velaz, who previously hosted an advance in a main team. Anything we want to say about this other than happy you're not homeless?
Yeah,
Let's go.
Just a couple.
I think that's basically it. I mean,
Yeah.
I do think this is like one of the more capable teams in Premier that actually excites me as a cohesive prospect. So the fact that they're not Orgus and they're just going to get picked apart or leave to Valorant is always a positive. Next move.
Oh, hold on one second.
Oh.
Just with Velaz, like the one thing that like I wouldn't necessarily say that this is an organizational upgrade.
No,
yet.
I'd say I'd honestly lean towards probably downgrade because
my personal experience with Velaz, we got into some like Twitter beef because they were like buying Discord servers from like they were doing some weird stuff like probably 4 or 5 months ago. So this is not super topical, but it's just like
no, I understand. It's
take Velaz with a grain of salt right now until that org proves themselves to be
let's
legit.
let the paychecks clear before we say anything. I mean, at the end of the day, orgs that sort of operate in like the lower level Premier / advanced space, they're kind of all similarly bedroom. They're all sort of similarly like it's one or two passionate people. Discord, yeah. So I mean, but at the same time, like this org is paying a team to play NACS:GO right now, so that's a positive in my book.
Where we can get them,
Okay, now here's an official move I'm going to qualify as a stupid, we don't actually care about Premier move. PDHM, who came through relegation, added Pow and one Goon. And so for those who don't know, Pow played with the team in season 35 with X Thunder Logic, where they almost made it. I think they finished in like 5th place outside of relegation, and they're adding this guy named One Goon. See, here's why their move is basically stupid: is because One Goon is an open / main player who doesn't really have any league experience. He seems to just be like a roster rider / stand-in who got put in because he's a friend of the team. And they told me that it's like, oh, he's just our friend. We can't find any players. The not finding any players thing just sounds like bullshit to me, because I remember one time I did the math. It's like there's like 200 or so players in advance. There's like 300 or so players in main, and there's like 450 players in intermediate. Of those like 700 to 900 players, you really can't find anyone who has more experience than one Goon. That just speaks to me that they just are going for comfort and they just want to play Puggy Wuggy and have a good time rather than be like a true roster. Any thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, my take on that is I think it's a little bit critical, but you do raise a really fair point. I would 100%. I want to see them actually play in Premier before I come to any assumptions whatsoever about that roster, just because frankly in their advanced season, even though they were playing a quote unquote like puggier style, like they looked committed, like they looked like a very talented squad with potential. They were both hitting shots and they played great off each other. And so
but they don't have Nightmare and they don't have Dangle. Don't you think
they don't have Nightmare? They don't have Dangle, but I still don't want to write them off yet. Give them like first 2 matches of Premier if they're hard stops.
Okay, we'll come back. Yeah. I mean, Pow is not awful, mind you. Like, he's an experienced advanced player. It's just the One Goon thing feels to me like this classic issue with NA players where they're like, oh no, we don't really want to scout for a player we've never played with. We just want to play with our friend because we know what we're getting, and we don't want to like experiment, and we don't want to try new players.
Safety blanket player.
Listen. coming from personal experience here with players that are on paper completely inexperienced and have no right to be playing at a high level, I am very skeptical to write off anyone until they've actually played.
I'm not.
I know we're different people.
I'd rather
It's
I'd
okay.
rather be wrong. I'd rather be wrong and him be great than be like, yeah, this one goon guy could be good. Is probably won't be. I mean, depending on who they play first, it'll be like, oh, he puts up a 1.30 rating by running at them with an AK. He's so good, and then he plays like, you know, like extra salt and goes like 3-15 or something. But yeah, so moving on, another team that's probably creature comforts of home is Rise has left SKDC. They're currently on the hunt for a fifth. It's probably going to be Armin. Any thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs down. Yeah, nothing really to say here.
Yeah.
SKDC isn't a serious lineup. Sempus and Desi are cool to have in the scene, but I don't think it's really a serious roster. Next up, we have Recon 5 have Drop Dead, but also not Drop Dead. Definite thumbs up for me. Can someone explain? Can someone explain to me what happened? Because I was in the thick of it, and I don't know what's really going on.
So this is my understanding, because I went and tried to find some answers, but basically the way that it was put to me was, let's see here, the way they put it was, long story short, they got baited and thought players mutually wanted to not play with each other, or otherwise they would have kept them all. So what basically happened was, let's see here, because Twice and Saturn didn't really know anything, right?
That's what they told me too, is that like they were surprised that Recon 5 was like, we're sad to see you all go, and they're like, wait, what? We don't want to fucking go. We want to stay. Like,
so it's so weird, because it's basically they had two people from the team. Not quite sure which two, but they basically had two players from the team who said, we're splitting up, and they both told the org, and I guess nobody in the org decided to kind of check with any of the other players before that happened. Before they decided to
you would have to assume that it's Cobra and Jazz Pimp, because Cobra was quick to say peace, I'm out, and Jazz Pimp has left for Choco Check for some reason. I don't really know what he sees in that team, but hey, more power to you, guy.
TikTok chocolate milk, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, if you can't, like, I mean, this guy did play with X Recon 5, so it's like, he doesn't I don't think he's exactly like an uber competitive like player. Yeah, that what you said basically lines up with what I heard, is that it's like some players wanted to go, some players wanted to stay. Through amazingly poor communication, they basically just like stalemated. And then the org just accidentally dropped them. It seems like they're having gonna do like a reunion tour where it's gonna be like Twice, Saturn, I think Slight, and I think that's what's on the table right now. I know there's a fourth player. Can someone refresh my memory?
I believe they have. Well, they still have Austin on the roster, but I think Austin's supposed to be potentially leaving. So
that's what I've heard too. So, but I mean, Austin, Saturn, Slight, and Twice is like a fair shake to rebuild a team around. And I mean, we all liked the Recon 5 roster. Last season we thought they punched above their weight, and Twice and I feel like Saturn are important pieces of those. So I guess here's hoping to a speedy recovery for you guys. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's a team that did well in playoffs, and now it's basically spontaneously combusted for no discernible reason. Yeah, so I guess good luck. Now, here's one of our top stories for the night: is High Coast dropping their team because they apparently ran out of money. And the team's largely gone their separate ways, with RCF and Boo returning to Yaz bench because of the loan. Ben Leet and Ponalone sticking together and bringing on DJ and Infinite, and obviously Munster staying on as coach. And they are currently in the process of finding a new org, which I find highly unlikely in the current climate. But let's take it. So obviously you can't really have an opinion about them losing their org. It's universally bad. So let's try to focus on like the player. Let's focus on the in and out of the players. Where do we feel with, let's say, losing RCF and Boo and bringing DJ and Infinite in?
So DJ has that historical chemistry. Infinite's a very talented player, although he's slightly more unproven just right now, just because he's not been super active over the past few seasons. But for all intents and purposes, once he's back in form, he should be a straight up upgrade, in my opinion, to Boo or RCF. It just really comes down to how well DJ is going to be able to punch in Premier, right? Just fragging wise and stuff like that. Because I don't think they have space for someone that puts up substandard numbers on that roster, the way it is with their playstyle. So
I've never really understood like the DJ, like people being down on DJ, because I've always thought he's been like a very capable player, and
DJ's very good. He's very smart, but he's not the most like mechanically talented, and he's not a playmaker either.
And I definitely think, like, I know one angle that's exciting is Infinite and Bentley are obviously longtime teammates and, collaborators. So I feel like everyone knows each other already, so we can just hit their ground running once they find the fifth. We didn't get to talk about it last week, but the fact that they were knocked out in like a super overtime, wacky fashion by RBG, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see this team next season, because we didn't really see their full potential. And now we're somewhat starting over again.
Well,
analysts cursed them.
Yeah, we're completely starting over, basically. I mean,
but you gotta
personally, I feel like losing RCF is like a huge, like, or both RCF and Modem losing, or MOTM is apparently he prefers to be called, as said from Twitter, but
Modem.
I think that losing those two players is going to be kind of brutal for that squad, because it felt like they were pretty big difference makers, especially RCF pulling up in clutch moments a lot of the time, just as an opper. But yeah, I don't know. Well, it's definitely we're resetting to square one a little bit with them, but we trust in Munster.
It's kind of funny because this roster is very reminiscent of like the old party astronauts, which eventually evolves like through over 3 years into High Coast. I don't know. It definitely feels like DJ is like a comfort player for them, which, unlike when we talked about comfort players earlier, at least DJ can like hang, and I don't necessarily like. His removal on High Coast was justified, but at the same time, like he's a player that I've always thought is good enough for Premier, so it's like I'm not super worried. I think they'll still be a top team if they stay together. We're going to speed up a little bit here. Lex returns to Mythic to fill in the hole left by ZNF. I don't like it. I don't think that's a comfort player.
I mean, the whole point behind Mythic is it's kind of just a comfort team in the grand scheme of things. So it's not too surprising to me. Obviously, it'd be nicer if there was a more talented or proven player in that spot.
Years old and played Valorant and played Battalion and hasn't really given a shit about CS:GO in like 3 years. Yeah, that'd be good. The
whole point is that you market the Path of Pro Counter-Strike pathway through streaming, and Lex provides that to a certain extent. So
right,
it's not too bad.
They'll probably be in playoffs again because that's just what they kind of do.
Yeah, and like that's the thing with Mythic too. Is it's like almost it's just like a marketing campaign done out of love for the game by like Flamin' Crew at this point. So it's like, of course, it's not a move that you're like, yeah, they're going to pro league with that. It's like,
I guess
it's not their goal.
The Lex move is just like, I don't know, man.
Well, right, but
bring in like another young player like JoJo. I just feel like they're like, it's slowly becoming like old guys club again. It's slowly becoming like an old guys club roster, and I don't know about it.
Well, hold on. Before we scoot on as well, I personally think it's a bit sad to see ZNF go, especially because ZNF was he's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
And when Mythic was running on all cylinders, and it was we had ZNF and like everybody was playing really well back with like the old lineup, like it felt I just feel like it's a bit of a shame to lose ZNF at this stage, but let's scoot on with our 6 minutes 25 seconds remaining.
Levitate dropped their team because they said they didn't make playoffs. They sure fucking didn't make playoffs. They were pretty bad. They lost Ghosty, and they have a coach on trial. His name's RBB.
Local
honestly,
local pie. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I am excited to see Levitate's like return. We saw that right there at the end. We saw them do all right there at like the end of relegation stuff. They have fire in them. It's not completely gone. they deserve their spot back in Premier based off of their relegation result, and
I mean,
so
legally they do. Legally, if you win relegation, yeah, I don't
listen,
know.
they're my new Imperium. It's only up from here.
It's only
You
up from
think?
here. Also, I'm sorry to RDB.
Fine.
I didn't mean to call you a shit poster. I know you watch the show. It's a bit of a meme.
He's
But
a
yeah,
nice guy. He's a nice guy. I just, it's this is another one of those teams where it's like they're like one of the have-me-nots of Premier, where it's like they just kind of hang out in the league. They steal a couple wins,
It's only
but I
up from
don't.
here, Jeff.
It's only up from here.
from here.
Okay, now speaking of a team that is a have-me, is RBG have added Ecclesia, and that's a hot fucking move right there. That's what you like to see, because for those who don't know,
Yeah.
RBG is on the come up. They did a deep run in Premier, and Ecclesia is like the hot pick, is the hot young
Hot rifle.
talent
Hot
of
singles
the
in your area.
he's the hot single in your area of NACSGO right now. Most eligible batcher in North America. Now I don't want to take credit for it or anything, but I did float Ecclesia to interested organizations after the season ended, and what can I say? He's made it to the promised land. What do we think about the move?
Let's just say I am RBG's #1 supporter in North America. I will buy all of their stuff. I will support them till I die, and that is it.
Upgrade over Wolf.
Absolutely. So what
Yeah.
Ecclesia adds is he adds a lot of experience. He adds a ton of ideas, just like a different style to play the game. And so you just added that level of depth to a team that's already super hungry and super driven. And I wouldn't say in a honeymoon period, but they're definitely like reaching their peak. And so I think they just increased their peak like 2 times almost.
He's pretty fucking good. Yeah, this Ecclesia guy clicks heads good.
Yeah.
I would put it honestly to some degree, like if you like the addition of Cynic to Triumph, like that's kind of what this move feels like. It feels like they're getting like just a direct upgrade, and that's exciting because I'm really excited to see where RBG is able to go with this. So
and to be honest, like Wolfie wasn't even like that bad. Like he did his job really, really well too. And
Definitely, yeah.
The fact that it's still like a actual like big upgrade, like I'm excited to see what the new RBG is going to be.
This team will probably go deep again. Now we're running out of time, so I just want to touch on Triumph Viz. We obviously know, unless you're, if you pay attention to the scene, there's likely changes coming to Triumph that are large and systemic. I think we should save Viz for next week because we'll have more context of who's going to be replacing him, or who's going to be replacing him, and how it sort of affects the composition of the team next season. So I'm gonna shelve that for now. We'll talk about it in week 1. And the final notable like roster move change is Imperial have made the jump over to NA, and they've brought former MIBR player Fair with them. Is Brazil going to win advanced again, you think? I'm leaning towards no.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't see a team in advance that could beat them. I mean, it's the same guys who got rolled over by Pain. And I mean, honestly, if foreign teams want to do it and they want to come and destroy our division, more fucking power to them. If NA teams can't step up to the plate, I'm happy if the opportunities go to these foreign teams, and it will. I think my theory is always it'll make the NA teams will have to wake the fuck up and stop comfort players and actually like try. And we do know that, for example, the Argentinian team 9Z is coming to North America. We know ATK from South America is coming. We know Bravado from South America is coming. There's been rumors of other teams sort of floating the idea of coming to North America. And, if our scene's going to have more foreign teams in it, I'm fine with it. I mean, there's certain teams at the bottom of any Premier who I think haven't had to earn their spots for a while. And honestly, now's the time for you to have to finally earn your spot in the division. We're really 100%. Running out of time right here. We have about a minute left. So I'm going to just briefly touch on the topics that we're going to push in next week. So obviously we'll be talking about Triumph. We'll be talking about Viz. We'll be talking about the changes coming to that. We'll be talking about the organization, everything about that next week. We didn't forget about our beloved Extra Salt and their European adventure. And we'll have the added context next week of they're playing Australis tomorrow. And I know I was talking about it in the pre-show a little bit with Jacob, but I honestly think they can fucking do it. Yeah. Like, I think they can beat it.
I really hope they can.
this is the weakest Australis has looked in probably since they've signed to Australis. And so, I mean, they've lost Device. The rumors are more players on the way out. Bubsky is rusty as fuck. And I think they're all looking in great form right now. So, I mean,
yeah. If
you know,
Extra Salt can pull it off, I'm giving a fat 60% chance. That is my percentage meter. I've got the flag up already. Jeff and I were already posting tweets tonight. We are hyped.
we are ready.
I believe in OC supremacy. I don't know if you guys know.
Be there or be square. It's honestly, with 10 seconds left, I kind of want to like touch on this. It's amazing the transformation they've had since they were Cloud9, and the simple change of you think losing like losing Floppy and Floppy, do you think like losing Floppy and the other person who I can't Modem would be really bad for them? But it's turned out that like adding Marquee and Fang, they've been dynamite since then. And I'm really excited to see their continued European adventure. And we are now really out of time. So
yes, we are. So thank you for hopping along with us for the first episode of season 2. And we'll be back next week with another episode. So stick around and leave some comments, subscribe, like the video, or I can't really like on. Well, you can like on Spotify.
Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to our RSS feed.
If you're that kind of person, but yeah. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.
Peace.